Saquon Barkley, TreVeyon Henderson, and Bucky Irving are fantasy's three most polarizing running backs heading into 2026. We tell you where to draft them on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, I'm Michelle Magdziuk, and I'm joined by my co-host, Vinnie Iyer. Today, we're going to talk through three fantasy running backs that are extremely hard to rank for this upcoming season in fantasy. Bucky Irving is one of those running backs working in the Buccaneers' crowded backfield. We have TreVeyon Henderson entering his second season, but stuck with those Patriots' stubborn coaches. And at the top, we have Saquon Barkley, who had two very different seasons over his 2 years with the Eagles. Let's start here with Saquon Barkley. He was the running back 14 in average scoring last year at 13.4 points per game in half PPR. That was after being the running back 1 overall in 2024, scoring about 8 points more per game at 21.2 points per game in 2024. So his current rank is sitting there at running back 9, 19th overall pick. It looks like he'll be in the 2026 draft for fantasy, somewhere around there. So in the middle of the second round. What are your thoughts on Saquon Barkley as he enters his season 29 age?
Yeah, the biggest thing that we knew that was coming with Saquon Barkley, recovering from that massive workload. And when I say massive, it was unprecedented. He touched the ball a lot. They went all the way to the Super Bowl, so he had to carry the ball in every game. He didn't miss a game, and his volume was massive for the Eagles. And they ran the ball a lot in Philadelphia. So they called upon him to do plenty. And that's what they should have done, right? It worked. They won the Super Bowl on his birthday. But after that, it just kind of piled up where you're going to have a tougher recovery time. And it's not like he hasn't had a share of injuries before. So it's going to be tougher to recover. But we've seen this before, like all the big workloads. Jonathan Taylor had some attrition after that. Christian McCaffrey. We've seen that as well with Josh Jacobs when he led the league in rushing yards and scrimmage yards of the Raiders. You just can't turn around with that high volume and come back and be the same effective back. Now, he's had lesser volume. They didn't give him the ball quite as much last year, so that could have helped him recover, but now he's a year older. The usage was still there. It's not like he didn't play. He still took some hits and played plenty for the Eagles last year. He just didn't have that same volume. So when you're looking at it, I don't think it's totally shy away from Saquon Barkley. I think it's fair to split the difference and put him at where he's at RB9. I mean, that's right in between 1 and 14, just about. So that's kind of what's happening here. I think he's just like Christian McCaffrey. If he stays healthy and he's going to get the volume, he'll produce. But I think he's a little dicier now than McCaffrey, where McCaffrey's had that season of recovery and then looked pretty good after and rebounded. And McCaffrey's also versatile, right? I don't know if they're going to throw to Saquon Barkley as much, and that was a big drop-off as well. You didn't have the same type of receiving production. So overall, I think this is fair. I don't think I would take him at this high of a cost. I mean, RB9, 19th overall pick, that gives you a second rounder on him, and that's a little high to me when you have guys like Ashton Genty, Amarian Hampton, and Jeremiah Love, right? Younger backs that you might say, look, there's no tread on those tires. I'm going to go after those guys or the younger guys. So, again, I'm not a huge Barkley fan because of the injury attrition. He proved me wrong in the 1 year, but then he came right back down to being a little bit overvalued as a workhorse back. So I think you lean somewhere in the middle, but I think it's buyer beware if his price goes up any higher than that. I think you want it ideally lower than that.
Yeah, with Barkley, it's not so much about his price, right? Because, yeah, last year was a huge disappointment with people were taking him with the first pick, second pick, third pick overall in drafts, hoping that he could repeat what he did in 2024. And that just completely fell off. It's not even like he wasn't used a ton. It was a little bit less of a workload, but the efficiency just completely dropped. He was averaging 5.8 yards per carry in 2024. That went down all the way to 4.1 last season. 6 fewer rushing touchdowns, and that's a worry with Barkley when he's playing with Jalen Hurts, right? Because Jalen Hurts, if you get around the goal line, he's going to do the tush push and he's going to steal a touchdown away from you. And we brought up the receptions. I mean, he wasn't a big receiver in 2024 either. It's been pretty much exactly the same these last 2 seasons in his reception production at 278 receiving yards in 2024, 273 in 2025, 50 targets this last year, 43 the year prior. So like coming out of the Giants, he's not used as a receiver like that with the Eagles. So that's why it's completely different to me than Christian McCaffrey, because McCaffrey can get worse as a rusher as he ages, but he's still going to be that top-notch receiver for a couple more years, and he's going to get double the targets of Barkley most likely. But with Barkley, he gets a new OC again. That will be huge, I think. Like, it just wasn't working with Kevin Patullo last year, just the whole offense. So we'll see if Sean Mannion can come in this first time being an OC or play caller coming from the Packer system and get that offense going. Lane Johnson missed a big chunk of time last year, pretty much the whole second half of the season. That offense works completely different with and without Lane Johnson. So if he can stay healthier, even though he is getting older, but that would be a huge upgrade. But I will just say, like, he's had over 300 touches each of these last 2 years. And we've only have 2 instances of a running back having 3 straight seasons with 300 plus touches over the last 10 years. Like, it just doesn't happen in this generation of football anymore. And it was Derrick Henry the last 4 years he's done it, and Todd Gurley from 2016 to 2018. Those are the only 2 running backs to do it. And Gurley did it because he had a ton of receptions during that span too. Henry's the only one that's gone 3 straight seasons over the last 10 years with at least 275 rushing attempts. And Barkley has done that the last 2 years as well. So it's going to be hard for Barkley to get this done a 3rd straight season, stay healthy at age 29. And I just think there's other running backs going right over. Like, if I'm choosing between a Marion Hampton or Barkley or Genty, like, definitely those 2 other guys I'm going to take over Barkley. And then even like a Chase Brown on the Bengals offense, or Jeremiah Love, depending on where he lands, or even Kenneth Walker now with the Chiefs, right? There's a bunch of guys going around him. I think I feel better about, with Barkley's age, the injury worry with all the touches he's had. And just the offense in general, with Jalen Hurts stealing so many opportunities away from him near the goal line.
Yeah, with Derrick Henry, I mean, he's an anomaly. I think Adrian Peterson also was that a little bit throughout his career, where he could come back from a massive knee injury and still destroy the league. And Derrick Henry is going to go down as a special back. I mean, he kind of abuses and wears down other players versus himself. So he's a different guy out there that's going to just, you can't compare him with other backs, right? And Barkley is so built on the athleticism and jumping ability. Like, if he can't cut the same way, or his ankle is a little bit sore, his knee is not the same, he's just so dependent on those explosive runs. That was the thing that disappeared last year as well. Like, where are the explosive runs? It was like almost clockwork. He had them 2 years ago where 20 yards would be, oh, no big deal. Then he ran 160 to 80 to the house, and you'd be like, okay, there's Barkley. But those things were few and far between last year. Part of it was the blocking. Part of it was the offense and the bad play calling. Part of it, I think, just the passing game was not as feared, right? I mean, you didn't worry too much because Jalen Hurts wasn't pushing the ball downfield. So it was compressed. Everything was compressed, easy to defend. Therefore, you could stop the big plays. So hopefully that returns a little bit, where they are able to stretch the field, and you have those Saquon home run plays that we've seen is his trademark here. So that's going to be also important. Now, I will say this: if you draft Saquon Barkley, it's going to be hard. Everyone's going to say Tank Bigsby or Will Shipley. I think they really like Tank Bigsby. I think it'll probably be a committee there, but Shipley hasn't proved that he can totally handle that straight up backup role. So Bigsby looked good when he got the opportunity. So I would lean there a little bit more based on Eagles not, as we mentioned, wanting to force the ball into Barkley in the passing game. So Bigsby would be that power runner with some explosiveness. That would be the replacement. So I would just do that. And I think Tank Bigsby might be the future here a little bit. I mean, he's got some upside in this offense. So again, just stash him if you're going to get Barkley, and then you're covered, right? You'll still get that decent production if something happens to Barkley.
Yeah, and I think also if Barkley can be your running back too, like let's say you go running back in the first round, maybe you have the first pick or second pick and you go with Bijan or Jahmyr Gibbs. And when you come back, if it's a late second round pick where it's at the, let's say Barkley lasted the 212, because people are worried about it. Then like if he gets to be my running back too, and we know his upside, we know how good he can be, and he's still like the Eagles offense should still be solid, right? And have scoring opportunities. So I would like him to be my RB too. It's just there's other guys going around him that I think have higher upside that I would want to take that shot if they had to be my RB1. But Barkley can still be a very good RB2 on fantasy rosters. All right, let's move to our next most confusing running back to rank, and it has to be TreVeyon Henderson coming into his second year, working with Rhamondre Stevenson, stealing all of his work. So we'll get to that right after a quick break.
What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but I had never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, we will continue the show in a moment and look at TreVeyon Henderson. Yes, that frustrating Patriots, now second year back. But if you want to get the top analysis all offseason long, like we're doing here, giving you an outlook already on what you should do in your 2026 fantasy drafts, don't forget to check out the Everyday Club for ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with Michelle and I and other listeners of the show. Just tap the link in the show notes or go to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com to learn more on how you can support the show all year long. All right, let's get into TreVeyon Henderson. I am already confused and my head is spinning on what I want to do with this back. In theory, I want to go after him and say this is exciting. But then we had Rhamondre Stevenson close out the season looking pretty good. I know he had some fumbling issues. But they didn't quit Stevenson. They paid him. They gave him the ball. It was a committee approach. It's a typical Josh McDaniels Patriots backfield. Now, RB24 on average in his rookie season, 11.1 points per game. Michelle, where are you leaning here? Is a guy that you can trust, or is it someone that you're totally avoiding in drafts?
I don't know. All right. Like we saw what Henderson can do when he gets the workload, right? He got a couple games without Stevenson. He had 7 games in his rookie season with at least 12 carries. In those 7 games, he averaged 19 fantasy points per game in half PPR. Like when he gets to work, he can be elite. And I mean, 3 of those 7 games, it was over 27 fantasy points, 27 and a half, 28.8, 29.1. He had another 17.3 day in there as well in those 7 games that he got the workload. It's the same coaching staff. And I do believe they just trust Rhamondre Stevenson more. I mean, I think what's really worrisome is we got a 4-game sample size in the playoffs, right? To see, okay, are they gonna keep working in Henderson and getting him more work? And said they went the exact opposite way. They did not trust him at all in these playoffs. Now he's dealing with a bit of an injury to the shoulder, but still, and a big part of that, I think, was his inability to be able to pass protect. And according to PFF, he was the worst pass protecting running back in the league last year in terms of pressures per pass block snap allowed. So this is something he's going to have to work on from year 1 to year 2. And if he can get much better as a pass blocker, I do think the team then would trust him more, because Stevenson obviously has his issues with fumbling. But it definitely came down to in the playoffs, they were like, we need this pass protection. Now, maybe also the offensive line can be a little bit better, so they don't need the running back to be such a good pass protector either. But without him being able to achieve that, then he's going to still just share with Rhamondre Stevenson too much. And honestly, I think the bigger worry with him is like, okay, well, Henderson should at least get the targets, right? Should at least lead this team. in targets in the backfield, it was Stevenson who did. He had 52 targets to Henderson's 48. He had nearly double the amount of receiving yards as Henderson because Stevenson was actually the much more efficient receiver too. He was averaging 10.7 yards per reception. Amazing for a running back. Henderson at 6.4, pretty mediocre, if not below average for a running back. So Henderson only had 4 fewer receptions, but over 200 fewer receiving yards. That's also a worry. And then, Stevenson led the team in rushing attempts near the goal line. Now, Henderson actually wasn't that far behind. Stevenson had 12 carries around the goal line. Henderson had 8 plus a target at the goal line. So 9 opportunities to Stevens' 12. It wasn't that crazy difference. You have Antonio Gibson now gone. He had 2 carries around the goal line. Terrell Jennings, for whatever reason, got 2 carries as well. Dearness Johnson got 1. So hopefully those all just go between Stevenson and Henderson next year. But I think I might be – I don't think I'm going to get into this TreVeyon Henderson battle to take him this year. He's a running back 20 right now in current ranks, 52nd overall. He'll be an early 5th round pick. I don't love it. I would rather go with the guys around him and Javonte Williams or Travis Etienne or even DeAndre Swift maybe even. I'm not loving the TreVeyon Henderson.
Yeah, it's hard to take Henderson ahead of guys that are going to lead the backfield like a Javonte Williams. He's still going to be the number 1 in Dallas. He was very productive, scored last year. I know Alvin Kamara's there with Travis Etienne, but I would expect Etienne with that investment in free agency to be the new Kamara and really lead that backfield. So I just going to caution, don't be fooled by all the theatrics, which is his 50-yard runs from last year. You take away a lot of those 50-yard runs. I mean, he's very inefficient. Right? I mean,
well, you can't just take away the 50-yard.
No, you can't. But they're hard to duplicate. They're hard to duplicate, right? Yeah. It was a record set for a reason. It's not something that you can just count on that they're going to happen because when it's such an anomaly, and only a handful of guys have done such a thing, that's not going to happen again. You got to get some of those consistent chunk runs, right? It's not just going to be counting on home run ability. And you're right, the little things were not very good. The big things were very big, and they exploded and made those plays. Now, I think that's exactly what you're seeing develop from the same way it was at Ohio State, where Quinshon Judkins was the better overall kind of power back, and then you put in Henderson, he was the home run hitter. So I think they're keeping that committee the same. Stevenson is not going away. So, again, Stevenson might end up being the better value because everyone's flashed in on Henderson and going – into RB20. I mean, that's really expensive from where he finished. And then again, that's assuming everything is going to be better and improve, right? I mean, but if you take away those bigger runs, maybe he has 1 or 2 of those, right? And that's still going to take away his value a little bit here. So I think this is fair. I don't want to touch the Patriots backfield, to be honest. It's very fickle. He could miss a block. He could fumble a ball. You might not see him for 5 games. That's how it could happen, right? I mean, it's a typical Patriots backfield now. It's got more talent than it usually does, but I don't think you can just assume Henderson is going to he's going to have a bigger role as a rookie. It's not how teams think. They say, this is the player we have. This is the other player. He's also very good. He helped us through the playoffs. We're going to keep it the way it is with the production. I think that's what McDaniels and this offense is going to think about.
Yeah, I think it'll be key here during the summer, during training camp, to see if there's reports coming out that Henderson has stepped up his pass blocking game, right? Or hear from Henderson that's been a main focus for him and the team talking him up in that area. That's what we have to look out for. Because if he does increase there, I do think he's the much better overall player than Stevenson. He offers game-changing abilities that Stevenson does not. And honestly, Stevenson's not going that late in drafts either at this current moment. He's ranked as a running back 30 compared to Henderson at running back 20, which is okay, he's much cheaper than Henderson, but they're still Stevenson last year, I think, is whatever he did last year, I don't see it increasing, right? And you still weren't happy to have him on your team at all. Now, the thing is, if Stevenson were to go down, Henderson would be, a top 5 running back while he's gone, or top 10 at the very least. I mean, last year, again, like I said, in games with 12-plus carries, he was averaging 19 points per game. Only running backs to average more in games with 12-plus carries was CMC, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, and Jonathan Taylor. And then it was Henderson. After that, it was Devon Achane, Derrick Henry, James Cook, in with these elite guys. So if he gets the workload and he earns that time, he's going to be a steal in the 5th round. It's just, will this team trust him? Can we trust the coaching staff to give him the workload? But moving on to our last running back here, we got Bucky Irving. I think he is going to be he's going to give me such a headache trying to figure out where in the world to rank him. And maybe it's just where he's been the first 2 years in the league, right? And in his rookie season, he was running back 19 and average scoring at 13 points per game. In last season, he was running back 18 on average at 12.4 points per game. So not too different amongst those 2 years. Now, when he gets the workload and he's healthy and on the field, he is very good. He averages over 15 fantasy points per game in games with at least 10 carries throughout his career. So it's not he is productive. It's just, can he stay healthy? A. And then we have another change at OC, because we always do with the Buccaneers, right? Will Zach Robinson be good for this backfield? And then they replace Rachaad White with Kenneth Gainwell. How does that mess up things? Right now, he's currently sitting at running back 16, 39th overall, 4th round pick. I think Bucky Irving can be a top 10 running back, or running back 18 again, and be a massive disappointment, because even if you took him at running back 16, if he ends as running back 18, it's not going to feel good, right? It's not going to destroy your team. It's just not going to feel great.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to know what they're thinking, because there's multiple layers to this. Zach Robinson, he kind of took it off to say, Bijan Robinson, you're the guy. They did work in Tyler Algier when Robinson was the offensive coordinator of the Falcons. They didn't totally go against that. They did enough where Tyler Algier was an appealing free agent and landed with the Cardinals. Now, with Bucky Irving, the question is, do they view him as a Robinson-like talent? I don't think he is a Robinson-like talent. He's got some ability, but he didn't go in the first handful of picks in the first round, right?
No, Bijan's a special species.
Yeah, he's a special back. So I think Robinson is smart enough to realize, look, I don't have the one guy that I need to just pound away with. And Irving's had a share of injury issues, right? Being able to stay on the field. That was the case early when he got in the league, and then got battling some of that injury attrition last year as well to try to stay on the field and be effective. And yeah, I think you can look at Rachaad White and Kenneth Gainwell and look at what they did and maybe read into that a little bit. I think Gainwell was a much more effective back. You saw what Gainwell could do in that Europe game where it's okay, they're out with Jalen Warren, last minute scratch. Gainwell goes off in that game. I think he's a little bit better of an all-around back than Rachaad White at this point, and that's why I still see the Commanders making a big move with the White being kind of the receiving back. So Gainwell, I think, is a bigger threat because I think he can put together the same skill set as Bucky Irving. So, yeah, I think he's a worry, but again, maybe you hedge your bets a little bit with Bucky Irving. It is just very hard to say RB16. To me, that cost in relation to what I might get is just a lot more inflated than what we might get with TreVeyon Henderson, right? He could actually live up to RB20 if things break. Well, everything's got to break for Bucky Irving. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to be the lead back to finish at RB16. Gainwell has to be a non-factor. There's a lot of things that have to fall into place. And I think this is going to be a passing type offense. So you're going to see maybe a little pass happier with Baker Mayfield. So I think Bucky Irving is a little bit more confusing and a guy that I would stay with Barkley and Henderson. I think if the price was right for me and the way you said it was great, Barkley is an RB2 and looking at Henderson with a good value as an RB2, I think you'd go there. And I think they're better a little bit earlier as RB2 than Bucky Irving, or a little bit later when you look at Henderson's case. So I think Irving is in that kind of zone where I wouldn't call it the old fantasy term running back dead zone, but I think I'd rather go for the upside of Henderson or more the reliability and volume of Barkley a little bit earlier.
Yeah, what's really confusing for me is at the end of the season, they were so heavy on using Sean Tucker, right, as their goal line back. They kept giving the goal line opportunities to Sean Tucker. And if that lasts, like, what do we like? That's not going to feel
terrible.
good for Bucky Irving. If Gainwell's out there stealing a bunch of receptions and snaps, and then Sean Tucker's still stealing goal line work. Now, there is hope that changes, right? They have a new OC going from Luke Gizzard to Zach Robinson. Maybe he plays this differently in the backfield. Also, the offensive line should be better this year. Tristan Wirfs was banged up, missed a handful of games. And then Luke Gedeke missed time too. So, like, if they can get a better offensive line back there, a healthier offensive line, I could see it working out. But I think I'm with you that he's ranked a little too high for me. When he's sandwiched in between Kyren Williams and Javonte Williams, who I think are much safer guys with the same upside, right? Maybe Bucky Irving has a little bit more upside than Javonte Williams, but I don't know if that's true. I would just much rather go with either of those guys, especially like Javonte Williams. I think we'll be going after Bucky Irving once we get to September. Bucky Irving still seems more exciting, right, than Javonte Williams, but Javonte Williams can be in a high-powered offense as well. And he doesn't have a backfield of guys that he has to compete for snaps and goal line carries and all of that stuff. So I think there's just going to be other guys around him. Now, would you rather go with Bucky Irving or TreVeyon Henderson is the real question.
Yeah, I mean, at their current cost, I'd say Henderson because I think he has a little bit more home run upside. Like, I'm really surprised the Irving value at this point, to be honest. Like, knowing all that we know and all that we can see in this backfield, that's really surprising. And with all these guys, again, I mentioned a little bit with Henderson, don't be blinded by the flash and excitement. I think Irving, we take it back to his rookie year, how dynamic he was, but he was not that last year. Same thing with Barkley, and Henderson was inconsistent with his flash. So look more for the substance where you can get it with these guys to produce, and then say, okay, let's break it down for real, right? I mean, Barkley still has very little real competition for touches. Henderson is one guy. You know exactly what their blueprint is going to be. Mm-hmm. With Bucky Irving, as you mentioned, you threw in the Sean Tucker curveball. You have Gainwell, who has a similar skill set. There's just a lot more things that I do not like, the negative variables with Irving that I do not have with the other two guys. So I know we want to look at it with our kind of our highlight brain and our what do they do for me brain, but I think you have to just be legitimate with what their roles are at this point.
Yep, I'm absolutely with you. All right, that will be it for today's episode. Thank you for tuning into Locked On Fantasy Football. We will be back tomorrow to talk about the top most polarizing wide receivers entering this upcoming season and where to draft those guys. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Fantasy Football so you get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Fantasy Football ad-free every day, Monday through Friday, plus members-only Discord access to talk to Vinnie and I whenever you need to ask us some fantasy questions. Head to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to join the club. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.